I guess I'll ask you, Matt, what are your thoughts? Do you think, and this is the host in me coming out, do you think telling stories is going to be the way that we're going to be able to captivate a lot of these people, like you guys been doing it for the people? Or do you think we need to be more, going out, talking to people face to face? And I had Cliff Maloney on my show, and he gave me a stat and it blew me away. So he has Young Americans for Liberty guys and girls who go out and knock on doors. 1 out of every 9 door that they knock on, they can get a vote from. So it's working. So why aren't we doing it? So I guess what do you have any opinion there on that?
Well, it's like different things for different people, and I think the Larry Sharps of the world to me are probably the most interesting aspect of libertarianism, because having been a former grassroots organizer, what we're trying to do is very different.
Right.
Like we're not building a cadre of people that read all the same books I did. We could do that. That's sort of what the Libertarian Party is now, and that's fine. But the goal here is to have a communication strategy that turns a bunch of young people on to this idea. They're just we call them liberty curious.
Right.
And that's very different than being libertarian. It's having a sensibility that says, you know what, maybe if the government wasn't so involved in that, things would work out better. And just having that sort of aha moment. And I was actually, you remind me of an event I did with Larry Sharp where we were talking about this very question. And it struck me that, and this goes sort of back to what Penn Jillette was saying, are we recruiting people to the party, or are we building a community that's actually big enough to tolerate lots of disagreements, particularly as you're learning and evolving and thinking things through. And it strikes me that if our goal is to convince a majority of Americans to be big L libertarians and to be able to quote Rothbard, no offense, Logan, I know you're a fan, but that's not it. It can be very sloppy, messy coalitions on war, like Ron Paul created. A lot of Ron Paul supporters came from the left because of that issue. On criminal justice, that cuts, it's very attractive to evangelicals on the one hand and progressives on the other that want to defund the police. I think all of that is fine. And I'm reminded, and I've told this story before, but there's this awesome New York Times article where all of Bernie's old socialist pals in Burlington are talking shit about him because he's not nearly socialist enough. He's been such a failure for the socialist movement. And I'm thinking, dude, he just got the entire Democratic Party on board,
right?
And now has all of these acolytes like AOC, and there's some more that came in this last class. And that sort of bitching and whining about how he's not pure enough reminds me of any sort of ideological movement.
Yep.
You have the purists, and I'm kind of one of those guys myself, but I'm also a grassroots organizer. And if purity is your only goal, you're going to be small.
Yep.
And we're going through tremendous growing pains now.
Yeah. Well, I always say, do you want to be the king of being right, or do you actually want to get people to be more free?